Okay guys, this is a question I get all the time. It's big mix up and misunderstanding between closing costs and down payment. So let's talk about what is the difference, how much they are, what you can expect, all that good stuff. Okay, so your down payment goes towards the cost of your home. So if you are using a VA loan, you don't have a down payment. If you're using FHA, you're doing a 3.5% down. If you're using any form of conventional, that can be anywhere from 5% to 20% down. So it doesn't always have to be 20%, just depending on what you're putting down. Your down payment goes towards the cost of the home. So if you have a $200,000 home that you're buying, you're putting 10% down, now you're putting $20,000 down, that goes towards that $200,000. Whereas your closing cost is almost like the cost of buying a home. These are all the associated fees that go along with it. So these are fees from your mortgage lender, from the title company, and fees like prepaids like your property taxes or your homeowner's insurance. All of those random fees are all lumped into one number that we like to call closing costs. And so the closing costs don't actually go towards the cost of your home. It's just a separate number. It's a bunch of these fees and they're due at closing. But if you're like one of these people that I was one of them when I bought my first home, saying that you don't have any money to pay for your closing costs, that's not a problem at all. What we do is we can work it into the contract to have the sellers pay for all or some of your closing costs. Now it's different for every contract because depending on the seller, they might not accept those terms. Maybe there's a more competitive offer. There's a whole bunch of factors that go into it, but just know that it is totally possible to have the seller pay all of your closing costs. And we can write that in as part of the offer. So think of it as if we're buying that $200,000 house and we're asking the seller to pay $5,000 in closing costs, it's like our offer just went down to $195,000 because they are coming out of pocket to pay that extra $5,000 for you. Now, if the sellers are also in a scenario where they can't pay that extra $5,000, or maybe they just don't want to, if we think that the home could appraise for just a little bit more, we can negotiate that to be into the contract. So if the home is listed for $200,000 and you need $5,000 in closing costs from the seller, sometimes, depending on the house, if we think it can still appraise for $205,000, sometimes we can be able to wrap that into the cost, and it's almost like you're financing that fee. So over time, you are paying interest on that extra amount. It really doesn't affect the monthly payment that much. $5,000 is not going to make your payment go up much at all, but it's definitely worth it in some scenarios to wrap it into the overall cost of the mortgage and cost of the home, then coming an extra $5,000 out of pocket just to make the deal work. So depending on your situation, just know that there's totally ways that we can work around it and negotiate it into the cost of the home or have the seller pay for it. Just know that there's always a way around it, but remember, down payment goes towards the cost of your home. Closing costs are costs associated with buying the home. So, two completely separate things.